Okay. You see this?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna pull it up for you. All right. So what we're looking at on this particular case is this is a second-degree murder, unintentional is what the top count was that he was convicted of, right?
Right.
And that's a severity level 10. And then what we do is, so we look at this 10, we know the severity level. The other axis we use is this horizontal axis, and Chauvin's going to have a 0 criminal history from everything I can tell. So he's going to be in this axis, and you line those two up, the 0 down to the 10, and that'll get you into this box here. That's where a judge has to sentence under the Minnesota sentencing guideline unless the judge finds reasons for a departure down or reasons for a departure up. In this situation, the judge found aggravating factors, and what we call the top of the box is the top of this range, the 180 months right there, all right? And so since we're at the top of that range, now that the judge found aggravating factors, the judge can go beyond the top of this range or the 180 and even go higher. What we typically say when we're talking about sentences someone's facing is we usually refer to the middle of the box, which is this 150 months, because that's just kind of where things usually go. But technically, the judge has authority without a departure down or a departure up to sentence anywhere between 128 and 180 months. Now that he found the aggravating factors, he can go as high, even higher than the 180 months if he chooses to.
So do you read anything into these findings then? Are we blowing past the box, or is this saying, I found a couple weren't proven, I have a little bit of leeway to go over it? What are you thinking?
I would suspect that the judge is either going to sentence near the top of the box or even beyond the box. I think he found 3 out of the 4 factors there that he was looking at, and he articulated them pretty well. And I think we can read between the lines a little bit. And when he's talking about particular cruelty, I think that's the biggest one. All right, children are present. Yeah, you can't avoid that if it's happening. You know, they're just there. It's not like you began to do this in a home in front of children that you know are there. They come to gather around. So that one, not as egregious as some of the other children present aggravating factors we can see. But the bigger thing is here, I think he's talking about the indifference, the length of time, officers checking pulse, saying, should we roll him on his side, Floyd begging for his life, and all these things. I mean, I think the judge is sending a message here. He's making findings that the Court of Appeals will have to look at. But in between that, I'm reading that the judge is going, this was really over the top. And if I'm Chauvin's lawyer, I'm worrying about a sentence that's higher than that guideline range.
And help me out, the statutory max is 40, right? And obviously, I know Chauvin's criminal history is 0, but can we get to 40 just on these aggravating factors, or is that just?
I don't think so. I mean, legally, I haven't researched if he'd have the authority to go all the way up to what's called the statutory max or not. But even that being said, I don't see that happening. The judge has got a sentence, and he's supposed to sentence only on this case. Now, in the back of his mind, despite probably having to shut that out and not consider it, he knows that a federal indictment's coming. We all know that. I don't know that that's not supposed to affect the sentencing. Whether it will to a degree or not, I don't know. But I think there's a strong chance that, you know, it's anybody's guess.
Sure.
But a sentence of, 20, 25 years, I don't think would be out of the ballpark here.
Yeah. I covered one. I mean, it was a domestic homicide, but it was charged under was found guilty under the second degree unintentional. And that judge, after finding aggravating factors, went up to 27 and a half. I mean, he had hit a body, particularly cruel. He dropped the body in the river, but I still remember that case. And their lawyer appealed on like sort of an excessive sentencing, but the court did uphold it. It was a very high, like 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
there you have it. I mean, that's valuable information that you even have that, because the judge, sometimes a judge will look at what have other judges done and what has been upholded in the past, even though each case is unique to a degree. And
Yeah.
Cahill, the prosecutors might be citing that for him,
Yeah. And then the only other thing was, I mean, I know Cahill's got to just kind of rule on this case, but does he feel the outside pressure? I mean, he knows the world's watching. He knows what the world thinks of Derek Chauvin.
Yeah, I mean, he feels it. He feels it for sure. Will he let that interfere with what his duties are? I think he's been around long enough to be able to shut that out. It's a hard thing to do. It will be a challenge, but I think he can do that, and I think he will do that. But he knows that people are going to be riding on what kind of sentence happens, and there are expectations out there in the community probably about that, and he knows the risks. Well, to a certain degree, there are people in the criminal justice system. A lot of times it's victims' families, sometimes it's community members where frankly, there's just never enough, right? I mean, people often have that experience. How do you define justice? Everyone's got their own definition of what justice is, and how do you quantify how long, right?
Yeah.
And the law only allows for so much. So sometimes a judge can never give someone what they want when they define what justice is to them. So he feels that, but he's been around a long time. And I think that he's going to be able to, to allow that, or just to keep that outside of his reasoning and his ultimate number. I think he's got his own reasons that he's written about where he doesn't need the public pressure to get where he very well may be hinting he's going here.
And I'll just wrap it up because you referenced it, please, the federal elements, and then the fact that Chauvin's charged now in federal court. How do you have any sense on how that will play just in general, not necessarily Cahill's decision here, but I mean, is Nelson now working on a universal, plea agreement? I mean, can he get all sides to come together here before June 25th? Are those just going to be separate matters? How does that all fit into this?
It's anybody's guess. I mean, there certainly could be discussions occurring pre-indictment with here where you come to some sort of global resolution. All right. I don't think it would be a waste of anybody's time to consider doing that unless Nelson thinks that he's got a really strong case for reversal on appeal. Or, of course, if his client's telling him, I'm not interested in making any deals here, I want to go forward and I like my chances on appeal. You never know what those discussions are,
Sure.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least some talks about a potential global resolution here.
Good stuff, Ryan. Anything else you think I missed?
Not on that case. I'll tell you something on the background when we're off here.
Oh, do you want to go off? Let me stop the recording.
All right.